One. Good evening, all. Please welcome Kerry Siggins, the CEO of Stone Age, an esteemed leader in manufacturing, named EY Entrepreneur of the Year and Colorado's CEO of the Year in 2023. Kerry's company, Stone Age, is celebrated as a top employer by Outside Magazine and Inc. magazine, primarily because of Kerry and her leadership. She's a renowned speaker, podcast host, author, and influential contributor to leading publications like Forbes and Entrepreneur. Kerry authored a book, The Ownership Mindset, which continues to make waves in the world of leadership. Let's dive into an inspiring conversation with Kerry. Kerry, welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me today.
Excellent. Right, so we have a live event, and I recognize we're having this conversation now here, and this live event is all about resilience, obstacles to opportunities. But when we talk about resilience, there's so many facets towards that. But before we actually delve into that, I'm keen to hear about your book. What were your drivers for writing this book, The Ownership Mindset? Handbook for Transforming Your Life and Leadership. It's such an interesting title too.
Oh, thank you. Well, too, I think it really actually comes from resilience. I have a story of bouncing back when life punched me in the face, so to speak, and was able to turn my life around from rock bottom, and was given the opportunity to come and lead Stone Age at a very young age, and I wouldn't have been able to do that if I wouldn't have been very resilient, and that's through life and through leadership, through business. And so we've built this really remarkable organization at Stone Age. We're an employee-owned company. We have a culture of ownership thinking. People think and act like owners, actually. And so I wanted to combine the story of resilience and everything that we've done and everything that we've built around this amazing culture, and teaching people how to think and act like owners, and me taking ownership for my life in itself, and hopefully inspire other leaders to keep it real, to be real, to understand that adversity happens, and it's all in about what we do in the face of adversity, and how we don't just bounce back, but bounce forward and build great teams, great companies, and great lives.
That's very, very interesting. And, I'm a strong advocate of ownership. Um, I would say that I interact very well with people who have got that mindset of ownership,
Mhm.
just because they just take it and they get it, and they work through solutions. In your view, Kerry, you've built this company and you've got a story to tell as well. Tell us a little bit more about what that ownership means to you and how you've actually structured it within your employees as well.
Sure. Sure. Well, I personally think the ownership mindset is the most powerful mindset you can have. It's the mindset that you are responsible for everything that happens in your life. You're responsible for your career, your life choices, your attitude, how you show up, the quality of your relationships, the efforts. And it's really about self-leadership. And if you think about it, we're leading ourselves every day, whether we're doing it well or whether we're doing it poorly. And so when you combine this idea of the ownership mindset with strong self-leadership, you really can achieve anything that you put your mind to. And so that's really like what the premise of this idea of the ownership mindset is. How that's translated to our culture here at Stone Age is that we want people to take ownership in their work, and we want people to take pride in their work. We want them to feel engaged and like they have a voice, a say in their work. And so we have built what we call the Own It mindset, which is our set of values. Really what will help you be successful in our company. And we teach people how to embrace those things. Not everybody is going to be great at everything, and we all need that kind of development. But if we are very intentional about how we develop this ownership thinking, and how we treat our teammates, how we show up to add value to our customers, how we take responsibility for our careers, and for thinking about how we bring value to our teammates and our customers, you can create this really great culture of engagement where people feel like they're part of something that's bigger than themselves. And that's what we've really done here at Stone Age.
And Kerry, is that one of the metrics, the engagement that you speak about? Is that one of the metrics to determine how ownership is getting into the fabric of the organization?
Absolutely. So we do quarterly surveys, engagement surveys of our employees, so we understand exactly where they are throughout the year. And so that is a driving metric that we use. We ask the same questions over and over again, and then we sprinkle some other ones in depending on what's going on in the organization so that we can monitor our progress over time or start to see if there's a dip in engagement. We also do surveys. We also do reviews of managers and reviews of peers. And that really helps us understand what's going on in the company and what that engagement looks like. And so we keep track of those things on a scorecard as well. And then finally, we measure employee turnover. And we have incredibly low turnover for our industry, for manufacturing. And I think that that's a good indicator that we're doing things right, that people want to stay at our company because they feel like they have those growth opportunities and that they are compensated fairly and that they like their boss and they trust leadership and all those things that make up engagement in the workplace.
Wonderful, Kerry. Now, in my view, ownership mindset falls across different sizes of firms, whether it's a small firm, whether it's even a solopreneur type of a setup, to an entrepreneur type of a setup, to, well, small, medium enterprise type of a setup,
Mhm.
to established organizations. But when we look at the modern entrepreneur, and entrepreneur is a really big word, and that can be used as an entrepreneur who is a business leader in a small organization or a medium-sized organization or a large organization. And they are a symbol of innovation, resilience, and adaptability. I mean, case in point, you, Kerry. So a modern entrepreneur is not only that business owner, but also a person who creates, disrupts, and brings positive changes. But we are in a world of volatile business environment and areas where things are, there's a lot of internal and external forces. But when it comes to ownership, how do you navigate through those trying times where there is lots of pressure? I think that's
Yeah.
probably one of the tests, I suppose.
Oh, it is. Yeah, I mean, just give you an example of something that we're going through right now here at Stone Age. So, my VP of sales resigned. Customers stole him away from us, which will be, interesting in the long run of things because he's not really leaving the Stone Age family, but he's leaving our organization to go run one of our biggest customers, which is really exciting for him. And it's really cool to be able to create those kinds of leaders. Like he started in the company as a regional sales manager and grew and over the last 10 years has now become a key part of our executive team. And so while it's bittersweet, right? It's exciting that we're creating those kinds of leaders, but now we're going through all this disruption of, okay, now he's leaving. What does this mean? He runs a whole sales organization. There's not really a successor behind him to be able to backfill his position. And we have big goals that we're trying to hit. And what if we fall short? And what's going to happen with the economy and if Mike's not there to lead the organization. So this is something that's very real that we're going through. And so how I handle it is one, I am very honest with myself about how I feel, right? So I was really disappointed that he made the decision. We'd been talking about it for a while. Ultimately, it was an offer that he couldn't turn down. I completely understood that. So I needed to process my emotions about it before I could go out and talk to my team about it. And I think that that's a really important thing for leaders to do. And that's part of owning it, right? I have to have good emotional management. And if I am feeling upset or emotional about something, I need to get myself to a good place. So that's the first thing that I did. The second thing that I did is I pulled together the sales leadership team, and I said, all right, how are we going to do this together? What are your ideas? How do you think we should handle this? How should we organize the sales team? When should we go look for a person to backfill Mike? What does that look like for you? And so we co-created an interim plan together. And that's really powerful because people want to feel part of things. They're going to be more bought into it. And I don't have to be the person who figures it all out. And my team gave me really great ideas. People stepped up where I wasn't expecting them to step up. People said, I can't take that on right now. I've got this that's happening. Can we figure out something else? And so that co-creation was really important. And then we got that more significant buy-in. And then the next thing that I did was I have to be really transparent to the company. So we've got global employees all over the world. And I wanted them to hear personally for me what was going on. And everybody's traveling. I was traveling. So I created a couple of videos that explained what was going to happen. And then once we came up with a new org chart, I put that out. And so I did this personal touch with the videos so people could really hear from me and see exactly what's going on with transparency. And ultimately, I think that, I mean, I've had multiple people in my office this week and reaching out to me saying, thank you. It was really upsetting to hear that Mike was leaving, but I so appreciated your transparency and the way that you involved people in the process for putting together the plan. I feel really good about what's happening. That is how you can use the ownership mindset in these times of volatility. You don't have to own it. You don't have to take it all on your shoulders. You do need to manage your emotions. You do need to ask your team what they think, get their input, their opinions so that you have their buy-in, and you need to be transparent with the rest of your organization. And so that's just an example of something recently that's happened that was a good example of how you can use the ownership mindset to really lead yourself well, and lead your team well.
Yeah,
So sorry, that was a long-winded answer, but I wanted to give a real example.
no, it's my takeaways. You see, Kerry, I completely subscribe to this because I interact with a number of executives myself, and ownership is a big part of me as well.
Yeah.
So my takeaways from that were transparency, buy-in, communication.
Yep.
That itself brings, and you're involving people. That itself brings everybody together into the whole mix, so that
Yeah.
they're part of this journey together with you. But let me throw in something with that. Do you feel that in some of those instances, there could lead out to, these involvement could lead out to burnout and overwork because people think that they have to take on this responsibility that you're actually involving them, or they might feel pressured to overextend themselves beyond their roles because you're actually involving them.
I sure that's always a risk. And I think leaders always have to face that. I mean, otherwise it all just falls on to me. And so then I risk that burnout too. And so we have to really work together on what makes the most sense. And it's an invitation for people to step up. It's also an invitation for people to say, I can't take that on, which I had one of my sales leadership team members say, I can do this, but I can't do that. And so I think that's really empowering for people. Do you have to watch out for burnout? 100%. Like this is not something that it's like, okay, great. Well, we don't need a sales leader. We're done with that. No, but it's about how do we make sure that we take their time to find the right person, and everybody's going to be part of that. And then you have to monitor it. And you don't know if people are going to be burnt out unless you have a relationship that is safe for them to say that. And so that has been my message to all of them is if you feel overwhelmed at all, sit down and let's talk about it. We can talk about what comes off your plate. We can talk about what I can do to help. We can talk about prioritization, all these things, but you need to let me know when, if this is too much. But I have found that most people really rise to the occasion, and that burnout happens when they rise to the occasion and you don't work with them to take off things off their plate over time, where you just add that work and don't have any expectation that things are going to change. I think people can do it for a little while, but I think what happens is when you say, okay, well, that person's doing it now, they can do it for the next year. And that's where leaders get themselves in trouble with burnout. So you really do have to look at how long of a time frame you're asking somebody to take something else on, what before you give them relief, whether that's in, okay, we're bringing in a new leader now, or whatever the situation is.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's it's that transparency, right? And it's that open culture.
Yep.
It comes down to also that values that you're describing. Let's just delve a little bit more into the culture side of things as well. So,
Yeah.
you mentioned about values. Does everybody embody the values, not just perform, but actually embody the values?
Absolutely.
How do you actually bring that into the into the company?
Yeah.
Obviously, there's
So,
Kerry, but obviously there's a range of other leaders as well.
yeah, so we have what we call the own it mindset,
Mhm.
and it is our culture. It's written down, it's our philosophy, it's our value system, and it's how you're successful within the organization. So I would say that the own it mindset really is our culture. And then our values are three. There's three simple things. One, practice self leadership, right? So, self, how am I showing up every day? How am I taking responsibility? How am I embracing a positive mindset, the ownership mindset? How do I feel like I'm responsible for understanding? How am I taking care of myself? Right? That is self leadership. So practice self leadership. The second one is be a great teammate. So we are all in this together. No one person can do it on their own. And we have to have a really strong team orientation. We are a highly, highly collaborative organization. And so we do a lot around what being a good teammate is. And we describe what being a good teammate is being a relationship builder, valuing relationships, putting time and effort into building them. Being humble, right? Do you put the team first over yourself? Do you give credit instead of take credit? Things like that. And then be motivated. We're a small company and we want people to think and act like owners. And really there's not room to say that's not my job. There's room to say, hey, I can't take that on. Let me help you. But we're all here to grow. We're all here to, really make sure that we're taking good care of our customers and working together really well. And so motivation is a big piece of that. And then finally, our third value is deliver on the Stone Age Assurance Promise, which is our promise to our customers to do everything we can to help them get their jobs done on time, on budget, and safely, so they go home to their families every night. We serve a very dangerous industry, and so we want to make sure that people that we're reducing their stress. It's a high stress job, water blasting. And so that's kind of the bigger picture for the customer. So self, team, customer. And then it's everywhere ingrained in the organization. We have own it chats. We have own it training. We have this is how we own it, which is like our day in the life of, so people can see how employees, what their jobs are like. We have an own it committee, which is really about the employee experience. And then we have Own It ambassadors, which are our ESOP ambassadors, which help educate people on the value of the ESOP, which is our employee ownership program. And so it's everywhere, right? You can see here behind me, right? We've got quotes on owning it. So it really is our whole ecosystem is really built around this whole idea of the own it mindset, and that's how it's ingrained in everything we do. There's not a day that goes by that I don't hear an employee talking about the own it mindset. It's just part of our everyday language.
Wonderful. Kerry, tell me, are there any instances where things have actually just not worked? Not
Oh
necessarily a
yeah.
setback, but actual failure.
From a culture perspective,
Yes.
yeah, definitely. I think that, a lot of times we'll get excited about something and then we'll start an initiative and it doesn't stick. So let's see, what was one that we did? So we wanted to do this whole supply chain transformation and really focus the whole organization on our supply chain. And I think some really good things would have come from it, but we didn't invest in enough resources to really set a good plan in place. We tried to do everything internally with this kind of culture shift to really building out more resiliency in our supply chain and how that would help us look from a cost perspective, which is, part of delivering on the Stone Age Assurance Promise. And it just kind of flopped. People saw the value in it, but it was added work on everybody else's job without, I think, a really well built out plan. And so it just didn't go anywhere. And then you get accused of, okay, well, it's the book of the month. So what book are we going to read this month and try to implement something and then have it not go anywhere? So I think those are the biggest things, is that you try new things, and I think companies should experiment, but you also have to understand that it's okay that they don't stick. But that if it doesn't, that people are going to look at it as kind of like another thing that, leadership tried and it just didn't go anywhere. But I have found that the good ideas will, and they'll people will embrace them, and you'll be able to really work them into the constant improvement that you're trying to do with your culture. And those ones that aren't great ideas, they're just going to fall to the wayside. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, but yeah, that one pretty much flopped.
Yeah, and it comes down to the maturity of the leadership to recognize and to course correct, move on,
Yeah.
learn the lessons, or, lessons unlearned, and then course correct and move on, right? So
Yep.
I completely agree to that.
Yep.
Terry, tell me, we've got entrepreneurs listening to, great insights from leaders like yourself. What are perhaps three practical actions that new or established leaders can adopt and embed and embody, from an ownership mindset perspective and from a culture perspective? How can, these leaders, entrepreneur leaders, bring that to life within their organizations, because they are in the midst of either creating products, they're creating their companies, they're scaling up, they're doing so many things. They might be doing some of the things that you've just described, but what in your view, based on what has worked, what are maybe three or four practical things that they can actually adopt?
Yeah, I think one, you have to describe what the ownership mindset looks like within your organization, and then you have to role model it, right? None of this would exist if I didn't embody this type of thinking, right? I mean, I wrote a book on it. This is how passionate I am about it. And really the organization like kind of takes on the personality of the leader. So if you want people to own it, then you need to describe what that looks like, and then you need to be the beacon of it. You have to role model it every single day. If I said, hey, everybody needs to be a great self leader, they need to think about how they show up every day and the impact that they have on others. But I, as a leader, don't think about the impact that I have on people and just show up and when demanding or don't create psychological safety, then that's not going to happen within your organization. So just define it, describe it, what you're trying to achieve. It's really important. And then role model it. That's the first one. The second one is that there is no owning it without trust. And that is pure and simple. If people don't feel like they can trust leadership, if they don't feel like leadership is consistent, if they feel like there are unfair things that happen, if people get punished for speaking up, if they don't feel like their leader trusts them to do their job and is micromanaging them, then they're not going to own it. It's so easy just to fall back into, I'm just doing what I'm told to do. And if people want to have that ownership thinking within their companies, you can't have people saying that, but you have to be able to build that trust with your teammates. And the only way that you do that from the leadership at the top is, one, you have to train managers how to build trust with people. You have to hire managers who truly care about other people and about building relationships. If you have managers who only care about getting things done, and don't care about the quality of their relationships, then those people who work for that person they're probably not going to own it as much as those who work for a manager who really cares. So you've got to build that trust within the organization. That's the foundation of everything. When there's trust, you can have autonomy. When there's trust, people can keep it real. People share ideas. People, aren't afraid to speak up and say, "Hey, I think that we can do this better." And then the third thing is that you really do have to have a continuous improvement mindset. If you are stuck in like, this is the way that we've always done things. I literally just was talking to a candidate. I was interviewing a candidate for a position. And I don't know how many times he said, well, we don't want people to try that because, this is the way that we've always done it. And we know how to do this really well. Well, that's true, but it stifles innovation. It stifles people wanting to step up. So, how are you encouraging people to continuously improve? How are you continuously improving as a company? How are you evolving and growing. And that's the only way to be able to get that kind of creativity that's in people's hearts and minds. They're the ones out there seeing all the things that need to be done to be improved. But if you're an organization who doesn't care, who just says, well, we're just going to do it the way that we've always done it, then you're not going to have people own it. So I think those are three things that you can start doing, and you don't have to even be leading a company to do those. You can do those within your own teams to start developing that type of ownership thinking.
Wonderful, Kerry. That's amazing. Great insights for entrepreneurs, leaders, emerging, established leaders as well. It's a reminder to established leaders as well, actually. Um,
Well, we get busy. Yeah, we get busy with, running the company and dealing with the one crisis after another, and we forget
yeah,
the importance of I mean, constantly building culture. It's just a never-ending job. And it ebbs and it flows and it can feel overwhelming, but what good is your company if people don't want to work there?
yeah, and I always use the word embody. It's not a performance. It's not a program. It needs to come into the fabric of an individual
You
and
have to
really
feel it.
feel
Exactly.
it.
You have
Yeah,
to
yeah,
feel it. I know. The biggest compliment that we get here is when our customers come to visit us at any of our branches, but particularly at our headquarters here in Colorado. And they say, I've never seen employees so happy. Like everybody here is so happy to be here. It genuinely seems like they like each other. Can I get a job here? And that is such a compliment that our customers come and they see how much people care. They're so proud of their jobs. They want to tell them about their part in making sure that they go home safely to their families every night. And it really is a feeling that we have. It's not just words on a wall. It's not something that people can just spout off because they memorize it, right? They really truly do feel the own it mindset, and it is a fabric. It's woven into the fabric of our company, and people feel it.
yeah. And they do feel it. Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. Right, Kerry, we're coming to a close very shortly. Um, but before that, I know, Kerry, you kindly offered to share a gift with the audience listening, I understand. Would you like me to spell it out, or would you like to
I
share
can,
that?
yeah, I can share it with you.
Go
Yeah.
for it.
So I've given a link to my book. So you can get a signed copy for 20% off. And it's from a great company called Porchlight. It's an independent book reseller that does sells books online. So it's a great way to support authors and independent bookstores. And we'll share that link. And if you're interested in getting the ownership mindset, please click on it. I would love for you to read it and for you to share your feedback with me.
Wonderful, Kerry. Now we are going to promote that link to everyone, and everyone will have access to that so that they can click the link and they can get the book. But they can also engage with you, Kerry, as well.
Yes.
Wonderful, thank you. But now, before we close, tell me, for the entrepreneurs out there or the wannabe entrepreneurs, established leaders, and so forth, is there a challenge that you want to pose to them?
Yes, I do. So the opposite of personal responsibility is a victim mentality. A lot of us think it's irresponsibility, and it's not. It's about being a victim. And so I challenge you to think about how often you say, yeah, but. Yeah, but is the biggest clue that you can have that you are about to deflect blame someplace else. I would have gotten that done, but I would have met that schedule, but I would have been able to do this, but I could have done this, but this person. That but is such a critical thing, a critical clue in switching your language and your mindset from the victim mentality to the ownership mentality. And a lot of us don't realize it. A lot of us think, I do own it. I do take responsibility. But there's all these little clues that will tell you, maybe you're about to deflect it. So I challenge you to spend a day and listen to how many times you say, yeah, but, and that'll help you see if you are falling into that victim mentality. And then that's how you can switch your mindset to the ownership mentality.
Kerry, I'm actually going to take that challenge. I mean, I do certain types of challenges like this, but this one specifically have reminded me to actually think about it, not only in my business world, but also in my personal world as well.
You can use it everywhere. And the ownership mindset, it can be used by anybody at any age. I'm teaching my 11-year-old son about it. It can be used personally. It can be used in business. And I just had to catch myself with it, right? With my VP of sales leaving and really having to dig into what happened and why he's leaving and asking for feedback if there's things that I could have been done better. I found myself wanting to explain some things away. And it's just a really great way to hold myself accountable to say, it's okay. It's okay if he left for these reasons. And I need to continue to work on these things as a developing and growing leader because it's a journey, right? It never ever ends. So all of us do it. All of us can start to explain things away and use that yeah, but. And if we can just minimize it and eventually eradicate it, that's great, but it will change your life.
Yeah, it comes down to maturity. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
Kerry, thank you very much. This was such an insightful conversation, and you've given some great advice, some great insights, some actual practical tools here for people, not only in the business world, but also personally to take on board and look at it both from a mindset perspective, from a resilience perspective, and increase that maturity. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me, Stephen.